What's going on, people? We are back with Footy Talks. It's Kirk, and obviously I'm here with Sam. And as we promised, we have got the AP's global correspondent with us, which is Rob Harris, joining us today to talk about the European Super League, which has literally just been getting so much attention over the last
Crazy 24 hours, bro.
but yeah, we're gonna find out a bit more. So let's get Rob in. How you doing, Rob? Everything good?
All good, yeah. Nee, how's it going?
Yeah, everything's fine. And as I said, we're literally just here because we want to know as much as everybody else wants to know whether or not this thing's going to come on, what implications is literally going to have on football as we know it. Years and years of having the Premier League structure and everything, and it just seems like it's all in disarray at the moment. So yeah, we're just here for you to tutor us and let us know the information.
It's great to join you as well. I mean, I think one of the things is we're not used to sort of like seismic changes actually happening that affect things, whether in any part of life. So you expect whatever happens, things sort of go on as normal. Maybe things like lockdowns that we never anticipated until a year ago is sort of prepared us for sort of the unthinkable. And we sort of assume that football will just get back together again and it will continue as normal. But those involved really say they're committed to this, and there is a structure being built around the Super League. It's not just bits of paper. They seem determined. It's big brinkmanship. This.
It's very interesting stuff to hear, and of course, as we said, yeah, we just want to know more. So, in fact, the last thing you said kind of feeds into our first question, which is what kind of implications will it have on domestic football, like the Premier League and the FA Cup?
So, as it stands, the English clubs involved, the other countries, clubs, so the 12 teams in total from Spain, from Italy, from Germany. Sorry, Spain, Italy, and England, long day, have all been told that if they go and join this Rebel League, they're banned from existing competitions. They can't play in the domestic competitions. They can't get involved at all in Euros, the players in the Super League clubs or the World Cup. And it's interesting how far that threat is carried through. I mean, it just seems so hard to imagine the Premier League starting next season, for instance, without 6 of the teams, if everyone sort of bumps up through the leagues and we get them there. So that's the thing to consider. And what they're left with then, a Super League of 12 clubs. They still want to add another 3, but Bayern Munich in the last few minutes have just said, absolutely no way, we're not part of it. So who are the other 3? And, it's a game of brinkmanship now. Could they really be left out in the cold? And it's just 12 of the clubs. And, what does Harry Kane think about captain England at a Euros, assuming he's fit? And the threat is hanging over. UEFA is consulting its lawyers now whether to ban those players from its competitions.
Wow. Yeah, Rob, like you just mentioned there, you mentioned Harry Kane and whether, what would he think, and I think that's the question. A lot of people want to know what the players actually think. And one of the questions also is, do you think players will be moving to other clubs as a result of this Super League?
Well, I think that's going to be one of the key things to actually figure out in the short to medium term. Actually, what do they do? Are they all sort of assessing their contracts now? Are we going to get a mass exodus of players from the Super League club? Suddenly, if you're Norwich just been promoted, you're thinking, actually, we can hoover up some of these players. But, it's something they're going to have to consider. And it's really difficult in terms of what do they say? I mean, post-match tonight, you've got Liverpool-Leeds. The players are going to be asked about it in the post-match interviews. A little tip, when you see the players and managers being interviewed pre-match, they're only allowed to be asked questions actually about the game itself. So that's why we won't hear anything pre-match unless they bring it up themselves. But yeah, post-match, it's going to be a key thing, in terms of what does Jurgen Klopp say, who's presents himself as quite a moral voice and quite a authority in that sense. How does he balance out the concerns of the fans versus his own employer, and without alienating the fans or his own bosses? And it's a pretty difficult position for someone like him to be in.
Definitely agreed. And as we've mentioned with football players in general, as we know, the Euro is around the corner. We've got stuff like the African Cup of Nations coming up. The next question is, what implications do you think this will have on international football?
Well, it's quite interesting because the role of FIFA is intriguing in all this. Their statement looked like it was condemning the league, the Super League last night, but it actually really wasn't very strong. And some of its language sort of saying it's in favour of leagues that are about solidarity and helping others was actually very similar to the language in the Super League's own announcement. And it just spoke out being against a closed breakaway league. Well, technically it's not a closed league because 5 slots out of the 20 they say will be up for grabs each year still, and open. And FIFA have been linked in the past to sort of potential world leagues, breakaway leagues, and they're currently really encouraging a Pan-African league as well. So it's not like they're against sort of closed competitions when they're sort of meddling or helping, whichever way you want to see it with CAF as well.
Yeah. So this Super League has probably been in talks for maybe over a decade now. If you look back at Wenger's interview, he obviously mentioned a little bit about it, but we all kind of just ignored it and just brushed it under the carpet. But even though we're still kind of premature in terms of the news and stuff that's just broken out over the past 24 hours, do you think there's a possibility that this whole idea could get scrapped, or is this Super League actually going to happen?
Well, it's interesting, just even now in the House of Commons, Oliver Dowden, the culture secretary, is speaking, and he's been saying like he's launching a fan-led review of football in the wake of the breakaway. We want to do whatever it takes to protect the game, and saying that we're putting everything on the table to prevent this happening. It's a tone-deaf proposal, but I think the politicians are seeing a bit of a chance to grandstand, knowing the fact the fans are against it. So it looks like they're on the side of the fans, which is obviously a moment. So it's interesting. What does the government do to exert all its power and influence to try to stop it happening? Because actually, the government uses the Premier League as a great sort of like advert for the country, and anything that damaged it would be damaging all round. And that's what it stands now, because UEFA have already announced plans for the New Look Champions League from 2024 today. So it's like going on in parallel as well. But I think the main thing is there's just distrust. I mean, if people were suspicious of some of these football leaders, now even UEFA have seen why to sort of question, like, the probity and like how like honest and trustworthy these club officials are now.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And as we were talking off air as well, we know that you've been doing interviews and stuff all day, so we know that you're probably going to be on the way very soon. But your final question that we had for you was just how quickly do you think this is all going to come about? Like, because obviously, as we said, this is football that we've known for years, and how quickly do we feel like this is going to be stripped away from us?
I mean, it's just hard to compute. I can only sort of like have the brain explosion emoji if I can feel like with it at the moment, which is just, that's what it feels like. I mean, if they do it, they've got to do it straight away, I think, because they can't be hanging around in the Premier League next year. And it's going to be really odd at the Champions League semi-finals next week if we've got rebel clubs who want to leave playing in it. It's probably just helpful for the clubs that no fans are allowed in, because it'd be a pretty toxic atmosphere in their stadiums if there was so. So it's I think what's most interesting is Arsenal, Spurs fans, who would be most standing to benefit from being part of the elite, because certainly they're not qualifying for the Champions League as it stands at the moment. Even they're against it as well. So it sort of shows it's not, the fans as well are sort of part of wanting to protect things as they are.
Very true. Well, Rob, thanks so much for making the time to come and speak to us. We know you got to be on your way as of now. So again, just thanks so much. Very informative.
Great to join you guys.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Yeah, see you in the Super League or not.
Definitely. All right. Well, there you go. An interview with Rob Harris. I just thought maybe we can just offer our thoughts really quickly on everything, really, just to like give our thoughts, because I don't know what you were doing, bro, but yesterday I remember I was in bed and I just kind of saw this story break on Twitter, and I just felt like something had been taken away from me. I was like, wait, what? Are you being sick? Because I thought, after the what game was it? I think I spent most of the day watching football yesterday. So I was just sort of like listening to Gary Neville talk and everybody speaking. And I was like, what is this Super League? Like, where does this come from? Why is everyone so angry about it all of a sudden? Like, is this something that's going to happen soon? But what are your thoughts on it, bro? What do you think about it?
Bro, because I've heard about the Super League I wouldn't say over a decade ago when like Wenger was speaking about it, but I'd say about maybe 2-3 years ago, I heard the term Super League, European Super League, and how this could get implemented very, very soon. Initially, I thought it was just going to be something similar to the Nations League, where they just basically create a whole different kind of tournament. So there's just more games on the football calendar. I didn't think it was going to have all these different rules and regulations surrounding it. Now that I've seen all these complications and the fact that players can get banned from international duty, or certain teams are not going to be allowed to play in the Champions League, I'm not for it, man. I think that money has controlled the game for way too long. And don't get twisted, I'm not the type of person that says, you know, players shouldn't get paid this much or managers shouldn't get paid this much. But when money completely, you know, overtakes the whole purpose of what football is all about, then what is even the point of continuing? You know, we're talking some of the biggest clubs in the Premier League. Can you imagine that? You know, that top six not being in the Premier League after the years and years of just entertainment and history they've given us, they're just going to leave and bounce like that. You know what I mean? Bro, like obviously it's still early days and there's still more meetings to be done and more discussions to be done. So we'll probably hear more and more news in the coming days. But as it looks like, I think it might, I don't want it to go ahead, but I think it might go ahead only because they've got the big clubs on their side.
Yeah. I think I have to sit back and agree, because it, as painful as it is to sort of like hear something like this going on, we have known throughout the evolution of football, especially in recent times, let's say the last decade or maybe even the last 15 years, that it was coming to a stage where entrepreneurs from, you know, different sectors, people who are making millions and billions of pounds and dollars, are, you know, all looking to invest in football. And I've just always known that, you know, in the nature of things, in terms of it being in human nature as well, that the rich always want to find ways to get richer. That is how it works. There isn't, you know, somebody that's out there. There's don't get me wrong, ethically, there's people that have certain ethics to do with, you know, whether or not something belongs to someone else. But if you are rich and you are making money, or if you have a business mind, you always want to find a way to make things more lucrative, to earn more money. So when football started becoming this sport where there's so much money involved, I think it was an inevitable thing that revenue and profit was going to become the sole benefactor of football as we know it. So it very quickly became so much less about you know, the game we love, you know, those we always talk about those rainy afternoons at Stoke City, where you know you're not going to get the 3 points, but you're just going to have to battle it out for a draw. And, you know, over the years, seeing some of our favorite football stars sort of like battle it out in the Premier League with this sort of goal in mind. You know, you can win the Premier League or you can get relegated. You go into the office on a weekday or into school on a weekday, you can go and chat to your friends and banter about how, I don't know, Arsenal smacked Tottenham or Man United beat Arsenal or Man United Liverpool. There is just always
part of the game.
Yeah, it's always been a part of the game, and it's always just been a part of the love of the game. And at this, what am I going to go to the office to talk about? How Arsenal got smacked up by Inter Milan?
And you know what the thing? Do you know what the thing is with that, bro? Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not upset to see Arsenal play Inter Milan or see Arsenal play Real Madrid, but I like the whole factor of, oh, Arsenal haven't played Real Madrid in the Champions League in over a decade. I liked hearing that. Not we played them in March and we're playing them again in August.
But bro, what is that even? November? What is that even to play for? What are we playing for? Like, what's
you know what I mean?
Game? Like, you win the Super League, cool. Then what? Like, this is what I'm saying. It's not attached to the Champions League. It doesn't give you any sort of qualification to any other, you know, domestic cups or anything like that. So at this point, we're literally just playing football it's like primary school football. Literally, it's not attached to anything.
Everyone gets a pat on the back at the end of it. That's pretty much it. Because if no team can get relegated, like the sport of football has been built on competitiveness, and now nobody can get relegated, meaning that you know, and also none of these smaller teams can get in. You know, and when you think about it in this way as well, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Leicester City replacing Arsenal into the top six. You know, teams can't progress and take over teams. Like no one can get replaced from that league. Like Arsenal and the likes of Man United, who haven't won a European trophy in how long? Tottenham haven't never won it. City have never won a European trophy. Are these guys going to just be considered elite clubs forever and ever? And all these other clubs that are stuck in the Premier League, they're never going to get a chance to progress. Look at West Ham. Look at what they're doing. You never know where they could be in 5 years, but they can never get into the European Super League because they were never a big club 20, 30 years ago. It kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie.
It's true. How do you actually? This is the thing for me. I think everybody has a lot of questions, and I, for one, like I could sit there and I could even be in a room with all of these people who have sort of like decided for everybody that we're gonna have this, and be like, who get in? Like, how'd you get in? That goes into this, and who don't? Like, how do you actually get in?
You've just got to have history, I guess.
Because you're talking about the likes of history, but the likes of Spurs ain't really won nothing yet.
Exactly. Newcastle, Blackburn, they have more Premier League titles than these lot.
And you're seeing some of these club owners, like United fans have had problems with the Glazers and Ed Woodward for a very long time. Arsenal fans, it's known that Stan Kroenke literally bought the club just to make more money. So if I'm honest, when I heard that Arsenal had joined it, I knew exactly what it was about, and I knew exactly that anybody else that's in this thing, it's not for a good reason. It's not because
they told me that when they saw them doing the coffee adverts, they just knew they were in it for the money.
you just knew it from the very beginning. And it's one of those things where there's been talk of clubs getting, like I read yesterday on Twitter from official sources that FIFA and other I think it was more UEFA actually that are looking to hand bans and fines up to like £3 billion pounds and all that kind of stuff. And my main question has always been like, do they even have the jurisdiction to do that? Like, what?
No clue.
Like, can they actually go ahead and do that? Can they actually go ahead and give?
Apparently, even the Super League have already planned out certain things so that they can't get sanctioned for what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they've really thought this one through, and on top of that, they're taking advantage of the fans because they know we are still going to watch that Super League. I will sit down on a Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever night they're going to put it on, and I will watch Arsenal play in the Super League. Why? Because I love the club and I love football. Do you see what I'm saying? They're taking advantage of people like me. There are more passionate fans than me as well. On top of that. So, these lot are going to pay money to watch that league. But, I don't know, man. I don't know how
I've always mentioned and I've always said that no matter what you do, like in terms of let's even take any football club, not just Arsenal, not just City, not just United, not just Chelsea, but any football club, and not even just the Real Madrids and the Barcelona, like all of those guys. Let's just take them out of the equation for a second and just think about football as a whole. I think that if a person, like let's say me, I have a season ticket and I decide that I don't want to renew the season ticket, there's probably about 10, 20 other people waiting in line to take my season ticket.
100%.
And some of these guys, they might not even be in love with the club like I am or someone else is, but it's always like, if you won't watch it, there's always someone behind you who will. Even though it seems like they're taking advantage of people who love the game, love football for what it is, there's no way they won't make money. It's actually really
will.
It's the saddest.
That's why this idea of like boycotting is quite silly because, like you're saying, there's always going to be someone there. Someone else watch it. Someone will go to the stadium. So, like, who doesn't want to see certain players play live? Do you get what I mean? Sometimes some of these guys, that it will be maybe the first time they can probably ever say that they've seen, I don't know, the likes of if Real Madrid are in it, the likes of like Vinicius Jr. and Karim Benzema and all of these big names in football. This will be probably the first chance they get to watch them play live, and you think they're not going to take that? 100%, they're going to go ahead and take that. There's 100%. They're going to go and take that. But yeah, this has been a very, very, Chris here saying American Otis is destroying English football. 100%. Wait, bro, before we just come off, I wanted to talk to you about some of the African players that could potentially miss out on the AFCON if obviously all the rules surrounding the Super League actually go forward. And like, I've got a list here, and the list is just it's crazy, bro. Like, all right, so we've got Kondogbia, who plays for Atletico Madrid and Equatorial Guinea. You have Thomas Partey from Ghana. You have Aubameyang from Gabon. You have Egypt's Salah and El Neni. You have Keita from Guinea. You have Mahrez and Baneka from Algeria. Then you have Mendy and Mane from Senegal. You have Ziyech and Hakimi from Morocco. And then Ivory Coast will miss 5 players. If you look at the 2019 AFCON, there were certain games where they weren't even able to sell out the stadium, you know? And these type of players, for example, the Aubameyangs, the Salahs, the Manes, they attract people to come on, to not only just watch at home, but to actually fly over and go and watch in the stadiums. If all of these guys are missing, the AFCON's going to have a real struggle trying to get viewership.
Could they also miss Ivory Coast? Could they also miss Zaha?
Zaha as well? I've completely forgotten. Wow.
That would be another name.
Oh no, Zaha. Well, Crystal Palace are not in it, so they can't.
Oh, they wouldn't be in the Super League.
Yeah, they wouldn't be in the Super League. So Zaha
could be fine.
So Zaha will be the star. He'd be the main.
And who's winning that? Who's winning?
Already is the main man, but yeah, he'd be there. He'd be doing his thing.
I think it's pretty clear to see. This literally has. This is the thing. If it was just affecting one side of the game, I think there'd be a lot less people sort of like talking, but it just seems to be affecting. It doesn't just seep into, domestic football. It's going into domestic football, international football, personal relationship with governing bodies like UEFA and FIFA. Like it literally just messes everything up if you think about it in that way. Yet these guys are still persisting and are still wanting to go ahead and do it. Whether or not, as Rob was saying, whether or not it will actually happen, you would like to think that if they're making this much noise about it, then it's going to happen as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But you just never know when they will decide to do it, or whether or not it will happen at all. I think it's everybody's hope and prayer that it's everyone's hope and prayer that this thing kind of just falls through and just doesn't happen.
I'm telling you.
Even putting that to the side, the amount of backlash that will come after this, like I remember I saw a tweet yesterday and people just kept on saying it, that yesterday is the day football changed for like forever. And it's not mainly because of this thing coming on, but it's just the announcement of it, how sudden it was, how nobody really knew when it was going to happen, but they just came out and announced it. And it was just like the biggest slap to the face for any football fan out there.
It's a massive slap.
That
I literally cannot picture Arsenal not playing in the Premier League. But let me ask you this before we jump off. Would you be happy with the European Super League if it meant teams were still in the Europa League and Champions League and teams were still in their domestic leagues and cup competitions? They just maybe, I don't know, picked a different day in the calendar to do this Super League thing. Would you be up for it?
Personally, no, because I personally think it gives certain teams an advantage, because when you play in that Super League, you get money and a lot of money. So it gives every team in that league an advantage over all of the other domestic teams that are out there, like your Norwiches who have just come up, and all of those guys. And it just gives them a massive boost in terms of the Premier League. So if the Super League was going on, who's to say that these guys are even going to go out there and play their best team? They might even just play kids and then play
just get the 3 billion.
Just get the kids out and then get the 300 million that they're going to get weekly, and just play their normal teams for the Premier League and all of that kind of stuff, and still be raking in money and be able to pump that into transfer windows and get better players. And then you're just going to see the gap grow, because I think one thing that's so amazing with football that we see now is that the gap that was there, especially in the Premier League, that was there between the big four. You remember the big four? You had Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester United. That was the big four before. And then it seemed like everyone below that was kind of like just scrambling for anything.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about the Premier League that's happened over the last 10 years is that gap has extremely narrowed.
Yeah.
You don't have teams like, Burnley going into a game with Man United with fear anymore. Or, Everton playing a team like Liverpool with like just cowering and not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now that gap has become smaller. Something like this, what it will do is just make the gap grow again.
Yeah.
You're just going to make it, because before, back in the day, the Premier League just seemed to be just between 4 teams. But now it's between 22, like it or 20. How many other teams are in the league? It's between all of them, because there isn't a game that you go into with confidence anymore, because you know anything can mess you over. So if I'm honest with you, I think the only way for this thing to go, to be rectified, is if it didn't happen at all. Even if they pick another day or anything like that, it still has very, very bad implications on domestic football. And not to even mention grassroots, who sort of like depend on stuff like the Premier League for funding, all of that kind of stuff. The FA and all of that, they depend on that for their local football teams to run, charities to run, all of that kind of stuff. It's very, very painful, and it's extremely tough for us to sort of like sit back and have stuff like this happening. It's just gonna mess everything up, really. That's how I feel.
Boy, well, we will see what happens, I guess. Exactly. What happens, but
I think with everyone, we've got some gamers saying no point to be fighting for Europa League. Just give it to Villarreal and Roma.
No, I agree, man. I agree. I agree with Neville. Like there needs to be punishments dished out for this, because all of this seems to have been done in secret as well, which is really bad. Like he's not just unleashed this information on us yesterday. Like, but
out of nowhere, right?
Out of nowhere, bro.
But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. As we mentioned, this is it was a very special episode. We had Rob Harris join us for a few minutes at the beginning, so if you didn't see that, make sure you go back and watch the stream over. He had mentioned some really important points, because he's been going here and there throughout the day, talking to German TV stations in this country and all over Europe, really, that have been wanting his services, because he is the global correspondent of the Associated Press. So he had a lot of information to share with us, a lot of information to give us. Let me just read this quickly.
Go ahead.
Papa Perez literally said he will create his own World Cup if the players are banned from playing in FIFA World Cup.
I did see that. That's insane. And guess what, bro? We will watch it. We will watch the World Cup. We will all watch. I don't know what they're going to call it. A World Cup.
I don't know.
World Cup. We will all watch it. I promise you.
Soham, thank you so much for that comment. That was funny. That was funny. But yeah, no, as we said, if you haven't seen it already, go back to the beginning of the episode. Footy Talks is something that we do on our channel. It literally just we sort of like take some of the hottest topics in football, anything that's kind of flying around. And this one we especially wanted to do because it has so many implications on football, but not just football, African footballers as well. If you go back to the beginning of the stream, we're asking if clubs, different players were going to move to different clubs as a result of this. Like, it's something that has implications on absolutely everything. So it was really important that we got this one out. But
yeah,
as I said, Rob Harris mentioned quite a few important points at the beginning. So make sure you make sure you go ahead and watch it. But thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a great stream. And we'll see you very soon. Just a quick announcement: we've got the Kings of Africa challenge that we do on our channel, and we have been doing for a while now. As I mentioned, it's been quite start-stop, but we're coming back with it tomorrow. Actually,
tomorrow,
for the first episode of the Kings of Africa challenge, which is a FIFA 21 challenge, or FIFA challenge in general. So we do it on FIFA, and that should be dropping. Keeping in mind that it will be on our Twitter, so you make sure if you're not on our Twitter, go ahead and follow us on Twitter, and the notification will come there, and also on Instagram as well. We should be mentioning it on there too. So that's at Jabulani XI for both Instagram and Twitter as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you very, very soon.
Peace.